secretary?
Yes, sir!
Forgotten voices of the Great War. Personal accounts of those who were there.
I was given a white feather when I was 16, just after I left school. I was looking in a shop window when I suddenly felt somebody press something into my hand, and I found it was a woman giving me a white feather. I was so astonished, I didn't know what to do about it. But I had been trying to convince the recruiting officers and the doctors that I was 19. I thought, this must give me some kind of added bounce because I must look the part. So I went round to the recruiting officers with a renewed zeal.
When they came to us, they were weedy, sallow, skinny, frightened children, the refuse of our industrial system. The wartime food shortages had left them in very poor condition. But after 6 months of good food, fresh air and physical exercise, they changed so much their mothers would not recognise them. We weighed and measured them, and on average they put on 1 stone in weight and 1 inch in height. But far more than that. At the end of the 6 months they were handsome, ruddy, square-shouldered young men who were afraid of no one. When we had pushed them for this crash programme of military training, out they went to France in batches.
Of course, we schoolboys were indoctrinated with great patriotism when war broke out. My father was an active infantry officer, and I shall never forget the day when they marched out to the trains. All the soldiers were decorated with flowers. There was no gun which did not show a flower. Even the horses, I think, were decorated. And of course, all of the people followed them, bands playing and flags flying. A terrific sort of overwhelming conviction that Germany would now go into war, and we would win it very quickly.
Well, a lot of us thought it'd be over by Christmas. I was one of those who thought that at the beginning. But I put it down to about a year. I think most of us put it down to about there. I was stationed at Gibraltar when the war was declared. And those officers there were afraid that the war would be over very quickly, and that we should miss it.
After the 19th December attack, we were back in the same trenches when Christmas Day came along. It was a terrible winter. Everything was covered in snow. Everything was white. The devastating landscape looked terrible in its true colours. Clay, and mud, and broken brick. But when it covered in snow, it was beautiful. Then we heard the Germans singing. Silent night, holy night.
Silent night.
And they put up a notice saying Merry Christmas. So we put one up too.
All is calm, all is bright.
While they were singing, our boys said,
Let's join in.
Virgin Mother and Child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.
Then one German took a chance and jumped on the trench and shouted out,
Merry Christmas, Tommy!
Not a fraternisation!
we never said a word about the war to the Germans. We spoke about our families, and how old we were, and how long we thought it would last, and things like that. And as a sign of their friendliness, they put up a sign saying,
Gott mit uns.
which means God is with us. So we put up a sign in English saying,
We got mittens too.
I don't know if they enjoyed that joke.
It was a beautiful day. I was lying in a field writing a letter to my mother. The sun was shining and I remember a lark singing high up in the sky. Then, suddenly, the bombardment started and we got orders to stand to. went up the street in 2 columns, one on either side of the road. And as we reached the outskirts of the village of St. Julian, the bullets opened up. And when I looked around, I counted just 32 men left stood on their feet, out of the whole company of 227. The rest of us managed to jump into ditches, and that saved us from being annihilated. Then, as I looked further into the train, I saw this green cloud come closely towards us. One of our men, evidently a chemist, said it was gas, and he said, "If you urinate in your handkerchiefs, it will save your lungs." So we did that.
The men came tumbling from the front line. I've never seen men so terror-stricken. They were tearing at their throats and their eyes were glaring out. The blood was streaming from those who were wounded and they were tumbling over one another. And those who fell couldn't get up because of the panic of the men following them. Eventually they were piled up 2 or 3 high in this trench. The effect of the gas was to form a sort of foamy liquid in one's lungs, which would more or less drown you. A lot of the men died pretty quickly and the others soon came down. They're in fact drowning from this beastly foam. Out of the 250 men we started with at 5 o'clock, we were very soon down to about 40 or 50 men.
At Pilgrim Ridge, I can still see the bewilderment and fear on the men's faces as we went over the top. C&D Company with support, A and B had to go to the front line. All over the battlefield, the wounded were just lying down, English and German, all screaming for help. We weren't like the Good Samaritans in the Bible. We were the robbers who just walked by and left them. You couldn't help them. I came across a Cornishman who was ripped from shoulder to waist with shrapnel and his stomach lying next to him in a pool of blood. As I approached him, he just said,
"Shoot me."
He was beyond all human aid. Before I could even draw a revolver, he had died. He just said,
"Mother?"
I will never forget that.
During the attack on St. Julian, on the 26th of April, 1915, a shell dropped in right among us. And when I pulled myself together, I found myself lying in a shell hole. There was one other fellow who, like me, was unhurt, but 2 more were heavily wounded, so we shouted for stretcher bearers. Another fellow, Private Bob Young, was conscious right to the last. I lay alongside of him and said, "Is there anything I can do for you, Bob?" He said,
"Get my wife's photo out of my pocket."
I took the photograph out of his breast pocket and placed it into his hand. He couldn't move, he couldn't even lift a finger. But somehow he held his wife's photograph on his chest. And that's how Bob Young died.
The armistice came, the day we had dreamed of. The guns stopped, the fighting stopped. 4 years of noise and bangs ended in silence. The killings had stopped. We were stunned. I'd been out since 1914. I should have been happy. I was sad. I thought of the slaughter, the waste, the hardships, and the friends I had lost.
Officers, to your duties, march! Attention! Officers, are you ready to serve your king and country? Yes, sir!
That was good, wasn't it?